All right, it's a beautiful day in Kentucky, and we're gonna work on putting this 5.3 together. First thing we're gonna do is put some bearings in it, toss the crank in there, and check some clearances with plastic gauge. On a budget, it's better to use a bore gauge and a micrometer, but we don't have the 500 and something plus dollars to afford. I mean, we could afford it, but we're cheap. On a budget. Yeah, we'll buy $800 turbos and then not afford a $500 micrometer. That's how we roll. But anyway, yeah. So the last video, we honed the cylinders out with just a ball hone, and then we gapped the rings, and then now we're going to put the crank in it. And you got these main bearings, and this one right in the middle is your thrust bearing. This sets how far the crank can move back and forth. Now on a small block Chevy, it's way back here. But yeah, so you definitely want to make sure that one's there. The bearings, they go hole in down, and then in the caps, there is no holes. And you want to put those caps on the same way they came off. The good thing about LS is they're already numbered in the corner. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then on this one, it faces a different direction. It's numbered 5 over here. But yeah. All right, so make sure your surfaces are nice and clean. And then you drop these bearings in. There's I'm gonna call it a tang for lack of a better word. And you'll notice these are tanged right through here. So,
but I got one
the tang, no, that's not a tang, that's where the other bearing sat. It's just discolored. So, you just put them right there with the tang, push them down. It's easy as even as you can get them. And remember, this middle one, it gets a big thick one. Yep, put that one here. And we're going to do the same thing on the caps, and we're going to put the crank in here dry, and we're going to check it with plastic gauge. Now the same thing on these, but these don't have a hole in them. And now the tangs on these, I mean, it's got a groove for both sides. I'm not sure if it matters which way those go in. I know on the rods it's tang to tang, but this was supposed to be a stock motor, so we're going to put it back the way it was. We're going to put the tangs on this side. So the tangs will actually be, see, this is cap 1, and cap 1 is going to go in like that, and the tang's actually on opposite sides. And that's the way it was stock, but so that's the way we're going to put it back together. I know on Chevy it goes tang to tang, and on the rods it goes tang to tang, but
it won't come out too good.
Clean these surfaces too, and make sure all your surfaces are nice, clean, and dry. So on the one that holds the thrust bearing, you'll see it's got a groove here, and this one actually only has one notch in the saddle. That's just discoloration. That's actually not notched all the way through. But anyway. All right, we'll put the crank in dry. We'll put some plastic gauge in there.
Which way does this go? This way?
That way.
This way?
That way. And all these caps, they're marked. You'll have 1 here, 2 here, 3 right there, 4 right there, and then 5 goes in opposite way. The rest of them, these little hooks face towards the rear of the motor, but the back one, the hook faces towards the front of the motor. But we put plastic gauge on that one, and we put plastic gauge on that one, and then we're going to torque it down and see what it reads. All right, so we made sure all our threads were clean, and then we made sure that we had some oil on the bolts, and then we're going to torque them all down to 15 pounds, starting in the middle. Go out one, out one, out one, about 1 to 15 pounds. And then the inner bolts get 80 degrees, and then the outer bolts get 53 degrees. We're going to take it, torque it, take it out, and measure the plastic gauge. So we're just starting on the inner bolts. 1, 2, then 3, 4, 5, 6. Then we come back and get the same, the outer bolts, same thing, start in the middle, here, 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 here. And then we're just all torquing them all down to 15 pounds. It's hard to find a torque wrench that goes that low. You can use an inch pounds and just do 15 times 12, which is 180, I think. All right, we took the caps back off. And what it does is it leaves a little squished out pattern. And what you do is you take this, yeah, right there, and you measure it, whoops, and measure it out to that squished out pattern and try to find the one that resembles the closest to the widest part. Looks about right there. I can't hardly see that.
You got something on there anyways. .0015.
So that's a little on the tight side. But to the factory is 0015 to 2 is factory, but when you're running turbo, you usually want to run about 3,000s and then a deeper pan and thicker oil and a high volume oil pump, but we're not going to do all that. But 0.0015, when it's going to shave some of that off.
That's a little wider.
Yeah, I think that one messed up somehow when we was. So this one looks better. I don't know what happened. I think we oblonged that one when we was taking the cap off, because taking the caps off these things sucks. We're gonna call it 0015. And so both of these motors that I've done like this, even these high mileage motors with new bearings, they come out to 0015.002, which is the stock specs. So they make a bearing that'll have 001 more, which would have put us at 0025, which probably would have been better for what we're doing, but this will work. Now we're going to take the crank out, we're going to lube up all the bearings, and we're going to set it back in and retorque it. So we lubed it up real good with engine assembly lube, and we did the 15 pounds on all of them, and then 80 degrees on these inside ones and 53 degrees on the outside ones. And I just use this cheap tool, but this cheap tool sucks. It doesn't turn with the wrench like it's supposed to, so I'm having to hold it and go off. I've been going off like one of these notches, and I've been watching it and counting it, and as he turns it and holding this still, because it don't work right. But we did a test on these. Small block 70 on these mains is 70 pounds on them inner. Well, if it's 4-bolt main on the inner bolts, but it came right to 70 pounds. We tested it with a torque wrench going up 5, and when we got to 70, I mean, it barely turned and the wrench clicked. I mean, barely turned. So, but I mean, it clicked right off the bat at 50, 55, 60.
That's hard to turn.
It is hard to turn with that assembly glue in there. It will be tight. Yeah, that's about right. So, all right.
Starting to loosen up now, though.
And then we're gonna
Get loosened up.
now these bolts here, I might have to look up the torque on those. I forget these numbers. These go into an oil jacket, so oil will come out of there. So we're going to use some thread sealer on those and put those in and torque them. And then we'll flip it over and start putting pistons and rods in. And here's the torque pattern we did. We did one wave with the 15 pounds, and then these inner bolts, we did 80 degrees, and these outside bolts, we did 53 degrees. And we're just going back through checking it with a torque wrench, and it was right at 60 on these outer bolts after the 15 pounds and 53 degrees. And then the inner ones, 50 pounds, 80 degrees, they come out right around 70. But we're just going back through them with a torque wrench just to make absolutely sure we didn't miss any. And then we're going to put sealer on these and go ahead and put these side bolts in. And these outer bolts, they go to 18 pounds. When it's that low, these torque wrenches, the big torque wrenches, they don't really go that low. So we use an inch-pound ones and just multiply it by 12. But again, we're going to use sealer on those. So on the end play, what I did was I just kind of stuck a screwdriver down in here and pushed the crank this way, and then he measured right here in this gap, and then I stuck a screwdriver here, pushed the crank that way, and it was about 4 to 5 thousandths, and I think that's supposed to be 3 to 8. And actually, if you're ever going to use a trans brake, it needs to be on the tighter side. So we're good with that. We're going to roll it over and start putting pistons and rings in it. But yeah, I'm putting the filler gauges in there. You'll have to stack up, push it this way, push the crank that way, and stack up some filler gauges till you find what fits in there. And then push the crank that way. Don't use this main to push on it. Push on a different one, just to make absolutely sure you get the right reading. Then push it this way and see what fits, and then minus the difference. And then that's the end play. That's why we're doing it. Now, if that's too tight, you can take this bearing out and make sure both sides are absolutely flat and sand it with, like, I don't know, 320 on a flat surface and make it bigger. Just be careful, sand a little, put it back in there, check it, sand a little, etc. But that's how I do it. I know that's not the preferred best way, but that's what we're rolling with on a budget. All right, so we're going to start on this side. So there's the motor, that's the driver's side, the passenger side, 2, 4, 6, 8. So we're going to start with piston 2, and we're just going to use a regular ring compressor. They got those ones that fit in the hole, and then you push them in and it compresses the rings and goes in at the same time. Those are awesome. But yeah. All right, before you put your pistons in, make sure that your ring gaps are not lined up together, or you're going to have a bunch of blow-by. So make sure your ring gaps are separated. You're supposed to do that with the ring gap on the oil ring down here too, but it's hard to see where those go together. So we're just going to put one up, one down, and then this dot right here goes to the front of the motor, and this is number 4. So first thing we got to do is take the cap off and put new bearings in it, grease those up, and then we'll put it in the ring compressor, and we'll tap it in with the back of the soft side of a hammer. All right, we're placing rod bolts. And them rod bolts, they don't come out very easy. He kind of shook it like this and they finally came out. But there's this metal sleeve. Make sure those come off the other bolt, come out with it, see? Especially if yours has that on there. But when you put these bearings in, they go tang to tang. There's no hole on them. Same thing on the rod. The tangs are only on one side. And then when you put these caps back on, they go tang to tang. So that would go like that. And then we're tang to tang and nothing over here. And dot goes towards the front of the piston. Where's the dot? Yep, dot goes towards the front of the piston. Dot goes facing the front of the motor. Yeah. Of course, leave the cap off, lube up your bearing, put it in the ring compressor, and then we'll send it through. When you send it through, we're on cylinder 4, so that's going to be this one. make sure this journal is all the way towards the bottom of the motor, which it already is, so worked out for us there.
Where is it?
And then we'll put the ring compressor on it. Now we'll send it through. I know I've said that 10 times already. And before you put this piston in the ring compressor, put some oil on it. That's going to help you a lot. But right there we go. And again, dot towards the front of the motor. This thumb's in my way. That's the front of the motor. Then you want to make sure it's lined up as good as you can. Then he's going to take a back of a hammer and beat on that. And I'm going to sit over here and make sure it don't hit the crank. He's just going to tap it, the back of the hammer. And it'll start coming through. So it should only take a light tap for that to go in there. Our ring compressor came off and it got stuck on the O-ring, so we're going to put the ring compressor back on there and try again. Because you don't want to hit real hard on that. It should be just a light tap, good tap, it should go through. So we redid position the ring compressor, it slid in pretty good. All right, bring it on down. See, popped off the ring compressor.
Yeah.
See, and it slid in with just a, all right, tap her on down. Whoa.
Pretty solid.
Yeah, it's because it's turning a little. So now we kind of got it sideways, so we gotta push it back out and try to spin it some. Might have to have 2 hands for that. So the straighter you get that dot facing towards the front of the motor, the easier this will be.
We'll wait on that.
We accidentally knocked the bearing off of it. Also, before you put new bearings on there, make sure you clean it real good. You want it nice and dry and clean when you put the bearing on the bearing to the rod side. But now we have to put the we knocked the bearing out of it trying to put it straight. So we're going to get that back in there and send it on down. So if you get it close to straight, it'll straighten out once it hits the journal. Go ahead and tap it on down. Yeah, see.
Yeah, it looks pretty good. Now it is.
Yep. See, and it straightened itself. And then we'll have to turn this back around. So I might have to put it there, and then we'll put the cap on it. All right, and then these caps, they're cracked caps, so the camera just automatically turned off on me for some reason a while ago, right as I was in the middle of talking. But the cap goes on, the tang on the tang. See, I call this side the top of the motor side. I call this side, you know, facing down the oil pan side. So I noticed on 2468 on LS, the tangs go facing the top of the motor, and then on 1357 the tangs go like they're facing the bottom of the motor, which again is completely different in small block Chevy because the tangs always go towards the oil pan on small block Chevy. But the cap goes, the cap and the rod on the rod, the bearings go tang side together, and then this side there's no tangs. And then when you put these on, these are cracked caps, so they'll only go on one way. If you put the wrong cap on the wrong rod, you're going to have a gap there, and you're going to have problems. If you put this cap on backwards, you're going to have a gap there, and you're going to have problems. But we'll go ahead and get that tightened down, and we'll go ahead and torque those. So there's 2 different types of rod bolts pictured here. So we have the second design. The first design goes to 15 pounds, then 60 degrees. And the second design goes to 15 pounds, then 80 degrees. We got the second design, but we're just going to put them all at 15 pounds for now. And then once we get all of the pistons in, we'll flip it over, and then we'll go through them and do the 80 degrees. Because it'd be easier if we flip it over, especially with that junky dial degree indicator thing that I bought. That thing's crap. But the degree torque wrenches, they're kind of expensive. So on a budget. And this picture and the last picture I got from Summit Racing. Now, on the second design rod bolts, this one says 85 degrees on the second design. And I'm finding some conflicting info on that. Some of the sites that I'm looking at for the iron block is supposed to be, some say 75, some say 80, some say 85. So we're probably going to go with like 80, I think. All right, there we go. 2, 4, 6, and 8 are in. And again, all the tangs are facing that way on the opposite side of the rod on these. And we'll see 2, 4, 6. That was hard to see. It's an 8. Then we'll flip it the other way and do the same thing. 1, 3, 5, 7. This side, the tangs are going to be facing this way. And on the rod, it goes tang to tang. On the mains, I guess, the tangs go on separate sides. That's the way they were. We took 3 of them apart, and that's the way they was. So that's the way we're putting them back together.
That's the way they cookie crumb.
Then up here, that's the front of the motor. Dot, 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 duck, duck, goose, go. Oh, wait, wrong one. Yeah, all the dots facing towards the front of the motor. We're rolling like, I don't know, rolling like something. But, yeah, the ring compressor's working really good for us now. What do you think, Austin?
That's a getting there.
We're getting there. And then again, see, it's just weird how the tanks go on these. Anyway, if you see any gaps in between here, there's something bad wrong. All right, so we got them all in again. There's 7. And,
no, there's 8.
And the tangs go together. And on this side, they go here, 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 and then here. And look at your caps. Make sure that they go together. I mean, if you ever put these on and those don't go together and look flat and smooth, you've done something wrong and you're going to have problems. But yeah, they're all in. They're torqued down to 15 foot-pounds. We got to flip it over and do the, I believe it's 80 degrees. I'll have to Google that again. And then after that, we'll go over putting the oil pump on. There's a special way you got to put the oil pump on after you take them off. And then we're going to take a truck windage tray and cut it to match the LS1 windage tray. And then we can put the oil pickup on it. We can put the pan on it and go from there. But we're going to call it not for tonight because Austin only had so long to work on this thing.